So, hello and welcome to session 4 of 5 in sustainability in the art studio. And today, everybody's going to share a presentation. And so, as I mentioned, you guys can share your screen. A couple of you sent me presentations. I'll share my screen. You'll just tell me when to go to the next slide. But also, it's okay if you don't have a presentation. You're like, I just have an idea that I've been thinking through and I want to have a dialogue about it, right? The 15 minutes is completely yours to do with however you want. You could spend the whole time presenting, but then we will have to move on. So if you want some time for dialogue, just make sure you save that in your time frame. And if you want, I can give you like a 5 minute notice or something like that. Just let me know. So does anybody want to start? Colette, awesome. And you should be able to share your
Yeah.
screen.
Okay. I don't think I'm gonna need that long. I only did one thing so far, but I do have ideas for my other projects and um, feedback is always welcome. Or if you have like worked in these processes of what I'm proposing, I would love to hear your experience with those materials. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to say one thing, and I'm just getting a notebook out to take notes. I would like to invite everybody to leave at least one comment per person in the chat thread, for folks to go back and look through later. And I'll save those and upload them to our Google Doc, after class too. Cool.
All right. Okay, so I can't see you all and be in full screen, so uh, please just jump in and don't raise your hand because I won't see it. All right. I will say this, each year, bluebonnet is the national flower of, or the state flower of Texas. And so each year I do make a series of cyanotypes. And that's just kind of a yearly practice for me, but it's not necessarily part of what I'm doing for this class. Um, I had shared this opportunity in the chat, I think, for one of our other classes, Arboreous Earth. It's an online sonic tree portrait with already it has submissions from all over the world, which was super cool for me to read about the different trees and where people are doing field recordings. And this is so here's I'll give a disclaimer. My recording is kind of really subtle, so I put a clip in here, but if you're like, I can't hear anything, like you might hear birds chirping or a little rustling with the wind, but if there's like a storm, I'm going to continue to do some recordings that would be a little more less subtle. Anyway, I have these amazing Texas live oaks in my backyard, which was the reason that I bought the house. They're very mature, very cool that they have a very large canopy, so they provide a lot of shade. And let's see if, let's see. Yeah, I feel like you're already, I can't hear anything. Um, you would need to have headphones, I think, to be able to listen. So I'm not going to even play that. Okay, we're just going to go to the next. So the characteristic of the live oak, it has this very lovely, lovely, thick, dense, textured bark. And one of the things I found really interesting on the leaves is on the top of the leaf is shiny, and then underneath it's almost like a milky opaque, and it has a lot of acorns, which then brings me to my next part of the project. It's just a little video snippet on the left, which was a spider web caught, or part of a web caught in the tree that's blowing in the breeze. Okay, it can grow up to 82 feet. I didn't realize that it's considered a semi-evergreen. Um, it has there's a lot of symbolism with the tree and a lot of history about the tree. It symbolizes strength, resilience, and endurance because it can adapt to very extreme weather conditions, drought, freeze, wind. And it is said that indigenous cultures held council meetings under the branches of these trees. And the area that I live in was originally inhabited by the Comanche people, and who I acknowledge and honor their enduring relationship with the land that I'm living on. And this brings me to I have collected 32 cups of acorns. Those are my acorns on the right. And I have been researching about how to um, make dye with the acorns. And it seems pretty straightforward. And so I need to like have a 2 week block of time when I'm not traveling so that I can do the dyeing. So right now, the acorns are living in my refrigerator. One thing I did find out, you can see the little bore holes on some of the acorns. There's like a little larva worm that lives inside. So I was really happy that I had it very well contained and it was in a refrigerator that was not my primary food refrigerator because I did find a lot of those worms had kind of come out after I collected them. And so last summer, I did a workshop with Eco Art Space on Cerrillos Farm in Cerrillos, just outside of Santa Fe. And Jeannie Dobbs was the one who was teaching us about making natural plant dyes. And so I'm just showing you a few samples that I made in that workshop because I will be modeling this same process in my acorn dye textile work. So basically, you have to wash your fabric first. I bought the same kind of linen that Jeannie had gotten for us for the workshop. And so you wash it first, and then normally you treat it with a mordant. And however, I have been reading that because the acorns have a lot of tannins in them, you don't need to have a mordant, which is great. That's what saves a whole step. And so we wrapped our fabric samples around sticks and then bound them with string. And so the patterns that you're seeing are from the string that was wrapped around. And then you can see that obviously the outer part of the fabric got the most dye, and then like the inner part got less of it. And then once the dye is set, then you can just leave it in the jar with the dye overnight. And I haven't really tested. Jeannie does make clothing, so these I'm just gonna make textile pieces. Um, and so but I don't know how soluble or how much it lasts if you were to like wash these, if the dye would come out. Some of you have probably done this and know better than me. These are just two more samples. And you can see on the one on the left, I got a little more creative with how I was wrapping instead of wrapping kind of more linearly. I tried to make like little bundles so it kind of looks like blooms. And this was a sacred flower dye from India, and then juniper bark, which is also quite prevalent here in the land that I live on. All right.
But could you go back to your pictures while we talk?
Yeah,
Would you be okay if you like show them as we're talking about them?
sure. I have one more thing I'm gonna do, but I can share that well, maybe should I just share the third thing I'm doing?
Sure.
Okay. Again, this you all might have seen this. This was also I posted this And so this is an artist acquaintance of mine in Brazil who put out this clay ritual invitation. Um, and so basically, you make your own clay from the dirt that well, the first few slides, she's talking about what's happening and how the area that she lives in is being deforested. And so it invites each person to reconnect with the earth where they live. So you collect a small amount of local soil, mix it with water, um, create a living clay, and then you create an animal of the Cerrado while envisioning protection, nourishment, and strength for that species. And then you perform a ritual to activate the gesture as you release the energy out into the universe. And so the animals are varied. I thought the anteater related. Now, they also have rattlesnakes, which I also have rattlesnakes here where I live. So I definitely am going to do a snake and maybe the anteater. Okay. So I'm ready for questions or
And wait, Colette, just to clarify,
discussion.
so what you just showed us, that
Mhm.
pamphlet, that was created by, it's an invitation, an action invitation created by another artist. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. And you're gonna perform that action.
I am going to perform that action, and then she has asked for documentation.
Okay,
So
cool.
I think, if she gets enough submissions, I feel like she will for sure, try to exhibit it somewhere. It may just live online, as a website archive.
That is such a great participatory project. I love that. Um,
Um,
I also wanted to say just a quick, there's something that was so striking to me about the first dyed piece of fabric that you showed us. Because there's something about it that feels so industrial. Like I'm looking at a fence, like the wired fence. But I love, and it's also wild that it's dyed with rose petal because it has this very industrial sort of metal feel to it. It's surprising what colors can come up from natural materials sometimes. It might be the complete opposite of what we think.
yeah, apparently Jeannie said that it's very difficult to get. It seems like no matter what color it starts with, like it doesn't end up that color, right? So like the juniper bark was not green. Like we did juniper, but it wasn't green. Like even when we did the needles, right? And and then this started out obviously like bright pink, and it does not. So it's just like how it reacts with, I guess, once the organic material is cooked.
Yeah.
It somehow like cooks out the color,
Yeah. Yeah. And then like even adding acids and alkalines can like alter colors as well. Devin has a comment in the chat about,
which I can't see while I'm sharing
oh,
my screen.
Devin, do you want
Oh
to?
yeah, I can just say it.
Yeah.
I love working with tree nut dyes. Acorns is one of my favorites, but also black walnut, pecan hulls, and chestnuts work really well. Also, especially if you combine them with iron water, you can get a lot more color variation, and it creates that longer lasting, darker colors as well. But I like using like a combo.
Okay.
And Devin,
Do you have all of those nuts where you live?
I
Those
do,
trees?
yes.
Wow.
Yes. Well, so yeah, pecans, I have a cousin who has a pecan tree in Georgia. So like regional, I have access to them. But yeah, all of them work really well, and they're like some of my favorite botanical dyes to work with.
Very
Devin,
cool.
are you mordanting? And what
Not
type
the
of
not
fabric
the
are you
nut
using?
dyes. So I do
Wow.
typically mordant flower
Yeah.
root dyes. I usually use aluminum acetate is like the most
Yeah.
common one. But I've been working with fermented soy milk, which is a little
Yeah, I've heard.
interesting. But the nut dyes are really amazing because you don't need to mordant them because they're full of tannins. and they just like they outlast all the other dye experiments. The nut dyes that I've done are still like exactly the same saturation, even with age. Like they're
Wow.
stable.
What type of fabric are you using? And also, sorry, one last question. Are you scouring the fabric
Yes.
first? You're cleaning it first.
Yes, scouring is hugely important. I use a little bit of soda ash and Synthropol, the pH neutral soap. Cleaning everything really well is super important. And I usually just use I use like a flax cotton blend and also a flax hemp blend. There's a mill in I think it's in Pennsylvania, Tuscarora Mills, and I can add that to the chat too. But they
Great.
grow, spin and weave all of their own fibers in the Midwest. So that's like a good fiber source, and their
Ah, that's
fiber's all
great.
natural and takes these dyes really well.
That is great. I would love if you threw that in the chat.
Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Colette and Devin. So the timer's went off, but if there's any last minute comments that people want to make, or as you can give a big round of applause, give some snaps. So Colette, I'm excited to see where you are when we meet again in 1 month in this process. Uh, and if you didn't get any comments in, please do try to give each person a comment. Um, who would like to go next?
I can go next because mine is like a very similar mediums.
Awesome.
So let's see, share my screen. So many. Okay. All right. So my presentation has a lot of background because the project that I'm working on now is a lot of about the experiments that I've been doing lately. So I went to a very traditional art school. Everybody who works with color is a painter, and oil paint was like the best form of paint. So like everybody was an oil painter. So the painting on the left is what my work used to look like. It's an oil painting. I've always been really interested in the environment. My work's always been about the environment. But in terms of like, a lot of people who paint the environment are like landscape painters. I was always really interested in like micro life. So I painted a lot of tiny things like swarming insects and mushrooms, a lot of clusters because I was really interested in how all of these tiny individuals can come together and create something really impressive. So that's kind of a general theme that my work has always followed. So these are some of my older paintings, again, referencing like swarming organisms with the ants. In 2020, I started a series of paintings, which is my largest body of work that I call Penchant. And it's a series of trashed landscape paintings because that's when I really started becoming more concerned with climate change and just our interactions with the environment. And so I kind of thought of the trash paintings as like these swarms also. And just working in this way, I just started thinking about consumption more, my own consumption, how I'm consuming in my studio practice, and just in general, the materials I was using. So obviously, like oil paint isn't great. So I just started experimenting all over the place, and these are like my early experiments. The piece on the left is like the very first thing that I ever made with botanical dyes. It's made with avocado dye and just some black walnut ink that I made. And then again, the other piece on the right is me not really working with dyes in the way that we think of like dipping them into a vat, but I was actually painting with the dye itself. So I'm just kind of like figuring out how to navigate these new mediums. Um, with these new mediums, I also just like naturally started doing more community projects. So I am definitely interested in that with this class. Like how do I get artwork outside of a gallery and kind of more in the public world, and getting other people to use these materials too. So the first piece on the left was a residency I did at a garden center here in Cincinnati, and I collected all of the materials at the garden center and dyed these linens that hang from this maple tree. And this project was really just about opening this like extra layer of life that we have in our plants that maybe a lot of us are unaware of. And then the picture on the right is also just a walnut ink workshop that I did. I do a lot of the art making workshops alongside nonprofits here. So with the botanical dyes, again, more experimenting. I then started turning those dyes into paint. And this is kind of like my makeshift paint factory that I have in my basement right now. It's a mess and just the rate of experimentation that I'm doing. I just have all of these like stashes of things happening everywhere. But I really fell in love with the paint making process. And I ended up developing a pretty good, like, standard palette of colors. And I actually use these paints a lot for other community projects. Last year, I did a project that I call Perennial, which I gained access to this vacant plot of land in my hometown of Bellevue, and I created a lot of those paints in homemade paper that was filled with pollinator seeds. And I hosted a community event where we all created artwork on these materials, and then we planted the artwork. And the artwork actually grew. It was amazing. I'm kind of like breezing through these photos really quick because this is a past project. But this is what that lot turned into. So I'm very interested in more projects like this and creating like living art. I think it's really cool. And again, thinking about the swarm and how these little pieces come together to create something big. So this is what my work is kind of looking like right now. I'm working fully with the botanical mediums, all of the botanical dyes, a lot of homemade paints. I work so much with walnut ink and also some mica paint that I'm starting to play around with. But I just did a really big show earlier this year called Tending Stems at the Clifton Cultural Arts Center. And I was really proud of that show because it was my first show that was fully botanical after experimenting for so long. But for this class, I was looking around my studio, and from that show, I just have so many fiber scraps at this point. That's all of the crazy experiments that I've been working on. And these are the pieces that I like deemed as like failures, I guess. So I've been turning them into a quilt. It feels like the natural next step with all of these scraps. But I just really like the way that these pieces, how individually seemed kind of insignificant, but it's all about me exploring these new mediums, and now even they are coming together to be something whole, in a different way. So that's basically what I've been working on. I think there's a lot of potential here also to turn this into more of a community project where people can kind of like design their own squares and we all sew them together. So that's kind of where my head's at right now. I love feedback.
Beautiful. Thank you, Devin.
Yes, thank you.
Are you're hand sewing this or using a
I
machine?
am. Right now, I am hand sewing. I've never made a quilt before. Both my grandmas they've made quilts before, so they're super excited about this project. So I'm just hand stitching them, kind of haphazardly. There's definitely areas that could have been a lot better, but I'm just kind of like going for it right now. Um, I think if I did this in a community like way, I would absolutely be getting a sewing machine to make this go by so much faster.
Yeah, yeah. Or you could even have people sew, like take
I've
on
yes.
like that part of the process too. I mean,
Yes,
and
I'm
maybe it's like a
also
different
thinking how
group
to
of
make that work.
people.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I'd love to work with kids, obviously. I do that a lot already with like the natural inks and stuff because they can get it all over their hands and we can make a mess, you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I just stitching something together, like you said, kind of when we're weaving in a communal way, it just naturally brings us together.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. And even and thinking there's so many different I feel like there's so many different entry points for skill level in the process too. It's like kids could make the prints and do, wild things on the fabric, but then maybe you're working with like elders, like your grandmother and her friends or something to like stitch those all together or something.
Yeah.
And then the question for me is like what's the afterlife of this quilt? Like how does it live in the world?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about that because I love the idea of kind of having them displayed in a gallery somewhere. I'm thinking about making the other side of it all just done with black walnut because I have access to so much black walnut here. That's definitely like the dye I have abundance of. Also, it's a medicinal dye, so I feel like kind of wrapping yourself up in a walnut blanket has to be good for you in some way. But I love like being able to show them in a gallery, but also have this like something functional. It's art that keeps you warm. Like I love that, and I would love to maybe I can have like some performance pieces where we all like can kind of like snuggle in a quilt or something.
Oh, I love that. I also like aesthetically the idea of the back being one consistent color because it's connecting all of these like in one, it's like collecting all of them together.
Yes. And the squares that I'm using in this quilt, at least, are all of these like crazy experiments that I've been doing. And the pieces of black fabric that you see in there are
Yeah.
some bleach on fabric paintings that I did like 8 years ago. So like I'm diving back into that. So I really like just kind of like paying tribute to all of this experimentation that I've been doing. And so the dye that I started with was black walnut. So it feels like a very good, like, foundational backing piece. It
That's
just makes
beautiful.
sense.
Is the black fabric that you put bleach on, or did you dye it that black?
So the black fabric is just black fiber that I bought.
Uh-huh.
Everything else is just botanically dyed.
Yeah.
But I have so many of these bleach paintings too, and that's kind of where the thinking of using non-traditional materials started. So I felt like I had to include them also, and it just felt appropriate. And I've never thought of them as being used in another piece before.
I love that. It's like it feels like a catalog, like an archive of your different explorations, which feels so important to hold on to.
Yeah.
Like this feels like a personal piece, but and like the suggestions I was thinking of, like, how does it connect to community out in the world? Like that might be more appropriate if you're doing this collectively, like in a communal context. But
Yes.
I think it's so, yeah, I think it's just like it's this art, it's a living archive, and you've foraged your own art closet, right? To like create it. And so I really admire that about the process. There's quite a few comments in the chat. I don't know if anybody wants to like
I have to jump in and
verbally
see.
speak theirs. We've got 3 minutes left.
I love the idea of of somebody wrapping themselves in that in the cold winter months, and it's like full of all this sort of processes of life and stuff in a time when all that life is kind of
Mm.
sleeping.
Oh, I love that.
Good
So true.
reminder.
I've been working a lot with like food waste dyes. There's so much going on in this quilt, but I'd love to make like a food waste quilt. And I love the idea of like quilts kind of being like soup. Like we could make soup with all of these scraps and all these other extra things that we have. And so like I have all these scraps, so I'm making like art soup is what it feels like.
I love
Awesome.
that stone suit,
Yes.
right? Yeah, my friends are just talking last night about just starting to host gatherings where we just create a big soup and everybody just brings what they have in their
I love
fridge. They
that. That's
figure it out.
beautiful.
That's great.
And now I'm going to be thinking about soup as a collage next time I make soup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can see a lot of ways for this to be really accessible with students and kids and schools and like community organizations. I was really excited to see your energy and passion for it. And also Colette and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and she'd also brought up this live art that you plant and then it grows. And I got really excited about that project, and now I'm hearing it for the second time. So now I really, really want to try that with students. We were talking about how neat it would be if they like took it home, did it, documented, or like planted it around the community. That seems so neat.
Yeah, the perennial project is my favorite project that I've ever done. It was like the whole day was so special and everybody came together and we were literally just making art and planting it and it actually grew like couldn't have been better. I feel all art experiences should be like that.
There's such a deep like teaching in that too because we live in a culture of such instant gratification. I feel like there's such a teaching in how like it was so beautiful to see those pictures later, when all of the flowers are growing. And I feel like you kind of have to go through that cycle of waiting to understand how how impactful something you do that may not have any immediate impact can be in the future. I feel like that alone is such a significant life lesson in today's culture. Um, let me check the time. We have 13 seconds left, but if you could briefly speak to, I'm so curious how you make paper and embed the seeds in it? Is that what you did?
Yes. Yes. So to make that successful, because paper making is such a wet process and you don't want the seeds to start germinating early on
Right,
you,
right.
I would basically like pull my paper and while it was straining, I would like kind of press the seeds on top. So my paper had like a seed side and a flat side. So we were like painting on the flat side. And then when I planted the paper, it would be seed side up because so many native seeds don't actually like to be buried with like dirt. It's just like a light dusting of dirt. So I kept the seeds up high and just a little bit of dirt on top. And literally, it was perfect. But yeah, figuring out the paper, when to add the seeds that was definitely challenging. But adding them at the end after it's mostly strained, the paper's still wet enough to hold the seeds, but they aren't like germinating too early.
Brilliant. Oh my God, I love that.
It was awesome.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, it's such an obvious, like, yeah, of course, like how would the moisture issue with paper making? That's such a
Mhm.
great tip.
Yeah.
I really love that. Yeah, that's a brilliant project. Thank you so much, Devin.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, excited to see what updates you might have in 1 month. Who would like to? Oh, let's do a round of applause. And I'm gonna put in the chat. I forgot. I'll figure it out last time, but I'm gonna say Devin's comments above just for later when I save this. And who would like to go next? Eve. Okay, cool. And I've got yours to share. Eve below.
Oh, I don't think you have it. You have
Oh
someone else.
no. Oh, didn't you share it with me?
I shared
I,
mine. Am I?
Erika, you did. Who is the second person? Sorry, I have two.
I shared yours, but
Oh, okay, okay.
I sent mine to you too, just in case.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I can
Okay.
probably share mine myself,
Great.
but I wasn't sure. So,
Awesome. Okay, Erica. Wait, Eve, you're going next though.
okay.
yes, I'll go. I probably should have
Okay.
shared mine because I'm not great at this. So I hope it works. Hold on.
If there's
Let's see.
technical difficulties, we can always go to somebody and then you can.
Yeah, I can go later. Okay, let's see. Here's my Google slide. So I have to hit, all right, let me just hit share. Yeah, see, I'm already, oh, here I am. There. And then I hit share. And what are you guys seeing? Do you see?
Sue to walk the house.
Okay, but I'm going to go to the top. Do you see? Hold on. I want to make sure you see, you can see
There
oh,
you
okay. Now it looks better, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I have to arrange your faces. But anyway. So I live in the Hudson Valley. I think there's someone else here who lives in the Hudson Valley. Who's that? Right. Kingston, right? Okay. So we have glacier erratic here. And I've been really interested in working with it. So this class has given me an opportunity to think about working with it. So these glacier erratics came here maybe like 25,000 years ago from the last glacial cycle. I'm looking up my history. They think, let's see, what was the name? The Laurentide ice sheet. And I think it might have been pushed here from what is now Wisconsin.
Eve, can you just explain what does the word erratics mean, if you know?
It describes the rocks that have been scraped and plucked by
Oh,
uh,
okay.
the ice sheets,
Yeah.
by glaciers. So
Yeah.
glaciers moved across the land
Gotcha.
and they pulled, it's called, I love the terms, they scraped and plucked. These are the terms the geologists use, and then deposited these erratics. No, it's a good point. Let me look up what that.
Yeah, it's just an interesting word. Like I'm not familiar with
It
that.
isn't, I mean, it's actually erratic is the most commonly used to describe a glacial erratic, which is a rock or boulder that a glacial transported from its original location and deposited elsewhere. And the characteristics are that it's usually somewhat circular, like a boulder, and it's just sort of sitting on top of the land. So I know for sure that these are glacial erratics because I work seasonally at Manitoga, the Russell Wright Design Center. I didn't prepare any photos of that to show to you guys. I suddenly occurred to me you might have wanted to see that amazing place. I can talk about it, but let's see, I'm gonna go through this slide. So these are, I was just there on the property with the landscape manager hiking and just taking these iPhone pictures of the glacial erratics and getting close. The landscape manager mentioned that they can even, I love this, like peel like onions. So over time, believe it or not, the rocks can actually, break away and peel. So I love this detail. And these are just details. This is interesting because this piece of property was also a working granite quarry. There's so much rock and so much rock in the Hudson Valley, not just glacier erratics, but all kinds of really old rock, billions of years old, the bedrock. But in any case, this is granite. And the scores in the rock there are from the time when this was a working quarry. So they're actually like breaking the rock. And so there are these wonderful traces throughout the landscape that, reveal the industrial past. And this is interesting. We were talking about, well, how did this happen? Did this rock break in half naturally, or was it cut in half? And then just notice this interesting thing happening with the trees. So you see this too, that the trees have grown up and under and over the rock. So I thought this was a really interesting thing that I noticed yesterday happening. And then right near where I live, where I walk my dogs every day, I've always loved this rock in this hike I take, all this texture. These are not glacial erratics, obviously, you can tell. They're not rounded boulders on top of the land. But I became fascinated with this because I went to a talk. These two historians live up here and they wrote a whole book about this. And they talked about how the ice, the glaciers move excuse me, I'm having a coughing attack. And this shows an inconvenient time to have. Hold on a second.
Take your time.
And I'm recorded. Well,
No, you're fine. You're fine. I,
I was so sick for so long, and
oh no.
this must be a trace of it, but I'm so much better, so it's just funny. Anyway, in the Hudson Valley, you can see how actually so much of the Hudson Valley, not just do we have the glacial erratics, but it was formed by the glaciers, the lakes, the mountains. And this scour and pluck I talked about, these rocks actually like are traces of that, where the glacier comes across and like I guess flattens or cuts the rock and scrapes across the rock. And I just love all the terms. I was just cutting and pasting this in yesterday. And I'm thinking about like engaging these terms as well, because I'm just thinking, like, how am I going to do this project? So this just gives you some definition of those terms.
Eve, can I just offer a comment and also give you some time to clear your throat? This
It does.
Take
Yes,
your time.
talk.
Take your time. I feel like the way you're even presenting this so far is just like an art work in itself, and it's like doing that job of like it's like educational. I think even just the photographs, the attention that you're paying to this natural phenomenon that's like the deep time history of our landscape. It's like we're seeing these things every day, but so little do we understand the deep time context of them and the story of them. So I just want to say there's a really beautiful artistic storytelling thing that's happening here, even before you're getting to like this alone is like a beautiful project in itself. I just wanted to say.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. That's so nice to hear. Well, this is from these are from their presentation. Um, but because this one shows the scrape and pluck. Chloe, here's my glass. I'm asking my daughter to get me water. Okay. So this shows the scrape and pluck. And these Hudson Valley painters really engaged with it. They were fascinated by it too. And this is the pluck, these are the actual boulders. These are the glacial erratics, the rounded boulders that have been moved here. And of course, Frederick Church, also Thomas Cole, are very well known for engaging with iceberg. This is actually a sketch of an iceberg. So he traveled to Newfoundland and Labrador in search of icebergs to paint. And this is a very famous painting of his in Dallas. But he has his home up here, Olana, and they have a collection of his sketches, which of course I'm going to run up there and make an appointment to look at them. And I'm embarrassed and horrified that I didn't see this exhibition at Olana, but I'm sure that I can figure out how to see the work. But they had this exhibition at Olana at his home. And there's also, I need to seek out the glacial striations. This is amazing. This is like the scratching, like the scrapes. This is not taken in the Hudson Valley, but this is taken up at North Lake. This is not far from here. So I need to go find this where you can actually see those scrape marks. Amazing, right? 25,000 years ago. The traces of the the rocks being pulled across, or the iceberg moving across. I've got to research that more. And I found this too. These two are from Facebook. So this is at North Lake near me. And so the rock in the foreground is showing some scrapes, I believe. So then I thought, well, how am I going to engage with this rock? Okay, maybe I'll just do an artistic slideshow, Anna. That's an interesting idea. But I thought, okay, maybe I can try some rubbings. Like I'm a photographer, so my instinct is to photograph. I use a 4x5 camera. I went to art school in California and I did these projects where I pushed my 4x5 camera like as close as I could to these kinds of like mud, like how do you say embankments everywhere in Northern California and these rock faces because I just loved getting really, really close, as you know, because you can get incredible detail. So I will probably do that too, and maybe develop those negatives using the Sustainable Darkrooms class. I bought their online class. Maybe I'll do that, but I'm also interested in doing rubbings. And I just loved the connection with the term to geology. So, did you guys know that that term is used to describe how large animals like mammoths or elephants rubbed against these rocks to groom themselves? It's a term that's used. And they left, you read this, polished spots, gravel scratches, just amazing when I read that. And also, geologists use that term, and they actually do rubbings as part of their research. So I thought, oh, perfect. So I've got to do rubbings. And then I was researching rubbing. I'm totally a photo film person, so I don't paint, I don't draw. I'm like researching, okay, what do I need to know about rubbings? And learned about Max Ernst with the frottage. And I just love this collection they have on the MoMA site. So this is a leaf, but also actually, that actually looks like a floorboard, doesn't it? So he did do rubbings of his floor. So that's what you're seeing on the left and right, but maybe it's also the leaf. Maybe that's a floor rubbing.
Eve, would you mind
Um,
at some point dropping this link in the chat later?
yes.
Cool. You don't have to do it now.
And I just chose another one where he's getting more abstract here. Oh yeah, you want me to put the link in the chat? I will. I'm scared to do it right now because
Yeah, no rush, no rush.
but I'm gonna do it. And then I just put another one from the portfolio where he's getting more abstract here. But those are rubbings of the floor, his floor, which I just love.
Wow.
And then have you heard of this artist, Doho Sa? Oh, I love this artist. So he's Korean. He has a huge show at the Tate right now. And he lived in New York for a long time. He lives in London now. And I saw his show at a gallery like probably 20 or 30 years ago, and I thought it was amazing. This is a rubbing of his childhood home. Unbelievable. And then he reconstructed the paper into the house in the gallery space. So there's no way I will ever get a rubbing like Dohosa, but I just wanted to appreciate what one can do with a rubbing. And he did rubbings of the interior of his New York City apartment. He used colored pencil. So you can go online and read about him. Um, so anyway, just here to say, hey, I haven't experimented like all of you yet with any of this. That's going to be my next task before the last class. And what do I want to do conceptually that works with the history of this material? I don't want to just do something just to do it. I want to choose a material that's going to speak to the history, that's going to speak to the glacial history. So this is something I'm pondering at the moment. And I just threw this in. I'm sure we've all seen stuff like this, but last winter I was taking a walk and saw these incredible prints of leaves on a slate piece of sidewalk. They were so detailed. I don't know why. I'd love to solve the mystery so that I can replicate this. All I can say is that it was very, very cold. And I don't know if there's something about the leaves being frozen and sitting on, and the slate being the actual material that works, because none of the other sidewalks had the imprints of other materials. It's like a hodgepodge sidewalk. It was
Wow.
only the slate.
Is that in ice or is it just on
No,
the
that's a
stone?
slate sidewalk. And
Wow.
And
it
the
looks
leaves are
like
not there, right? It's
they're
like,
not there. They're
yeah,
off to this. They're now, someone raked them.
That's crazy.
Isn't that beautiful? And I'm thinking, and I've been doing a long-term project. I don't have documentation of it, of the shadows of the leaves on my bedroom wall. I've done a lot of film and photography of it. I just have like an archive and I don't know what to do with it. And then I saw this. So I don't have time for this class, but I just thought I would share how nature made this
that is
incredible
very cool.
print. Yeah. And that's it. I'm going to stop my share.
Beautiful. I mean, Eve, even though you don't have like something test done yet. You've done such a great job researching. I mean, both like historically, geologically, but then also in art. Like those are such great examples of how artists have really um, seriously explored rubbing, you know?
Mhm.
In terms of materials, I don't know if this is ideal, but so see the white here? This is from I have a huge, large bird piece. This is like one fragment of it, but
Hmm.
white is wax. And
Beautiful.
then the brown is black walnut ink. My point being that the way I learned this technique was in a class with this artist, um, an undergrad, who had us go outside and get Gulf wax, which actually I have it here.
Hmm.
Gold, like paraffin wax. It's a really soft
Okay.
wax. It's not as hard as beeswax, although you could probably use beeswax too. And we would do impressions of like the grates all around the city. And then we'd come back in and we would play with ink. And all of the places where the wax was resisted the ink. So like this, for example, I actually painted wet wax on. And
Okay.
then I dipped it in a vat of a huge bath of black walnut ink that I made. But just to say that that's an option if you do end up wanting to go the dye route, or like, sorry, the ink route.
Okay.
So see you making paints with, from the rocks, but you'd have to get a sturdy molar, really
Hmm.
crush that down, right? And then you get your binder to the pigment and then the binder.
Hmm.
And maybe you even are painting that on top of an ink that you've made on paper to get a nuanced texture, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
but yeah, I'm curious to see. I've also seen, I had another student do charcoal rubbings. Um,
Okay. I forgot to mention biochar. I have a bunch of
yeah.
biochar from
Mhm.
my art organization. An artist used it and she has a ton of it. So I'm going to pick some up from her Sunday. I thought I'd buy rice paper
Yeah.
and like edit and like frame it over the rock. But
Yeah. You
how
might,
are the results?
But so for are you thinking of using charcoal for the rubbing?
Well, biochar to be more,
Biochar, okay.
but that's charcoal pretty much. Yeah, just a better version of it.
Mhm.
It's one idea.
Yeah.
if you're going to be transporting it, or even just storing it, you're going to want to apply some type of a fixative because
Mm,
with charcoal you touch it and it comes off, unfortunately. But
yeah.
if you wanted to go like the super eco route, you could like get an air spray gun and just do like a gelatin solution and spray it
Mm,
over. I don't know what exactly is in, these yeah, this is an acrylic coating. Not great. Definitely
okay.
mask, but but yeah, that's just something to be mindful of when working with charcoal, which I love. I actually found I have a painting over there that I sprayed. It's a charcoal drawing on newsprint. It's super detailed and there's some really thick areas, and I sprayed it, albeit with this. And and then I used glue and I glued over the whole thing, and the charcoal completely stayed in place, even after I rubbed a wet brush over it many times. So if you really need to you really can fix charcoal if need be. Just,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you. Any other comments before we could take a bio break?
I just
Okay.
want to say I kept thinking about how people take rubbings of gravestones. And I
Hmm.
was thinking about how all these things you're showing are kind of
Mhm.
like gravestones, but it's like a mark, like the death of the glacier, I guess. Like
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
scrape is the glacier's, what's it called, epitaph or whatever.
Well,
Yeah.
But I like that
Yeah.
connection.
I
Yeah,
love
me
that.
too.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I also was thinking about the gravestone, so thank you for that connection, that to the, yeah, to,
I was reading they do that at the Vietnam War Memorial.
oh yeah.
I
Mhm.
People come
also
and rub
I
there.
I always have feeling all the feels because I've spent a lot of time at a beautiful glacier lake in Vermont as a child. And
Hmm.
there's a giant one of these. Now I know it's called an erratic in the yard, basically. And I've always played
Hmm.
on it, and I can feel what it feels like to have my bare feet on it right now. And I remember my dad or somebody at some point telling me that what I guess 25,000 years ago, like it
Mhm.
that area, and I'm sure the Hudson Valley too, was all under 2 miles of ice or something. These glaciers were so
Wow.
huge. And so that
Mhm.
rock probably like came down from somewhere inside that glacier once it melted and
Yep.
sat down right there.
Was
Wow.
deposited right there. Yeah,
So wild to think about that stuff.
it is. It
That was
really is.
so illuminating. Thank you, Eve.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Um,
welcome. I'll get that link.
let's get some snaps and claps for Eve. Okay, so let's take a 5 minute bio break and we'll come back at 3:10, so in about 6 minutes, and keep going. Hey, who would like to go next?
I could go if nobody else wants to.
Awesome. Yeah, go for it. Okay, I'm gonna put Seth's name in the chat.
I am sharing my screen. Okay, should I go?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm kind of a hot mess, and I dealt with our art space getting flooded with sewer and most of my family being sick and almost getting stranded in my car and with my son in New Mexico
Oh my God.
and just work. So I didn't get to this until very recently. So it's a little bit of a mess, but I just started thinking about um, I think about speakers a lot because I'm a sound design person and I teach about them and I use them in my work and all that kind of stuff. Um, and I've always just so I had a realization a year or so ago when I was like, how am I going to start incorporating um, ecological ideas into my work and into my teaching? And that's a long process that I'll keep thinking about forever. But it seemed like first uh, one of the first simplest things to do is just think about the materials that I'm teaching about and making, and instead of just the normal way of teaching them how stuff works and how you plug things in and all that kind of thing, is to actually like, what if I thought, what if we had a whole class that was about like the anatomy of the speaker, and it wasn't about sound design and it wasn't about um, how to make music or whatever for a play, but it was like, let's actually trace let's deconstruct a speaker and find what every material comes from and what the supply chains are and like what the rare earth is that and where does it come from and what labor is involved to get it and all that kind of stuff, because that would be one way of getting my students to think about the larger implications and interconnections with the stuff that we're dealing with every day in like a theater show, for example, or in our classroom. Um, and because I can't necessarily at this point just start like, what I really want to do is just like, here's a class about ecological philosophy, because they'd be like, I pay money to come here to learn how to design for theater, and that's not what you're teaching me. What are you doing? So I'm trying to think of ways to sneak it in, and still have my students feel like they're getting what they want out of their education. So that's the teaching angle. And then as an art making person, I've always just been fascinated with resonating objects. So obviously a speaker is a literal version of that. But what's really interesting to me is like finding the resonant frequency in objects, sort of thinking of different objects that exist in the world or things that I make as having their own kind of vibratory life, and like um, kind of almost being like little strange organisms, and thinking of those sound making things as their voice and being part of an ecology, and it informs like my work and all that kind of stuff. Um, so for example, shit, what am I doing? Why did my screen just go blank? Oh, okay. I love the work of David Tudor. Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's the one thing I learned, because I'd forgotten this was a term, was uh, LCA is a life cycle assessment. It's a thing that I guess corporations and other people use, but seems like a great thing for any of us to use to like interrogate the materials we're using, which is everybody does such an amazing job in this class doing. But basically, it's looking at like the impacts associated with all the stages of the life cycle of usually a commercial product, process, or service. So I thought, why not do a thing like this applied to speakers? So I just thought I'd start looking into this. I don't know how I'm going to, use it for this class. I don't know how I'm going to use it for teaching exactly yet, but I thought, well, you keep thinking about it, so why not start researching it? So full life cycles of different things, right? This could be applied to anything. And what labor is involved, what are the supply chains, what's the carbon footprint, all that kind of stuff. You got to start with knowledge, I suppose. Yeah, and then in terms of the art making side, like I was saying, I've always been super influenced by David Tudor, who worked with John Cage, and one of a particular piece that he made that was really more like a sound installation than anything else. He was also a concert pianist and extremely kind of classically trained, talented, classically trained pianist. But he got really into electronics and he did all sorts of cool stuff, including this piece, Rainforest. If you know about it, it's from the 60s, and then in the 70s, he was doing different versions of it. I like it because it creates a literal kind of ecology of sound making objects, and it's an immersive piece, and you can walk through it and sort of experience being in an environment of art, these weird art objects that are kind of alive, because he's resonating, turning weird objects into speakers, essentially, right? Making anything vibrate with, and it has to do with like finding its particular, each object's particular natural frequency. So it has this really nice interaction with non-human things aspect to it that I appreciate. And it also has a kind of community aspect, which I appreciate, because in some iterations of the piece, it involved having each community member choose an object, figure out how to make it resonate, figure out how to design and program for it. And then it all comes together in one group thing at the end. I love that picture of somebody actually inside of a can that's resonating, or inside of a barrel. I guess that's a barrel. And then I'm also just sort of fascinated by the this inherent kind of mysterious thing about actual speakers, which is that they take two directional movement. Like literally, if you look at what a speaker is doing, it's just a coil moving a magnet back and forth, up and down, basically, or front to back. And somehow that two-dimensional movement turns into the incredible 360-degree complex, sound world that when we listen to music. And I was just like, how is that even a thing, that so much complexity comes out of a binary thing? So that just kind of fascinates me. And I just started looking at what is actually involved in these speakers. I kind of knew some of this, but I'm trying to be like, all right, what's the actual material? Here's the different parts. And then here's some basic, super basic initial research about what the stuff actually is, which I kind of knew, but I didn't really know. You can do plastic. The part of the speaker that vibrates and makes all the sound is called the diaphragm or the cone. It's made of plastic sometimes. Sometimes it's paper and cloth, which is really cool. Actually, the oldest speakers, it's really cool to think about how that's just paper basically, but mixed with things like wool and cotton. I didn't know that. So I'm kind of getting interested in like the idea of, I don't know, making some sort of bespoke speaker, which I tried to do in grad school. I tried to make my snare drum into a speaker, and I basically like almost lit my practice space on fire. But it kind of worked. I did get sound to come out of it. So I like the idea of making non-traditional speakers and making other things resonate, maybe that shouldn't.
Seth, could I just ask a clarifying question? So
Yes.
would you have you're like designing an object that frequencies would get transmitted through, like electronically or digitally, is that right?
You
Or
mean like
would the object itself emanate a frequency?
kind of both? Like basically the thing that David Tudor did with Rainforest is you take the driver part of the speaker, which is just the part that literally it's translating the electronic signal into vibration, and you just attach it to different materials than you would normally. And instead of these proper speaker materials, you attach it to like a trash can. And so
Yeah,
suddenly the trash can starts emitting sound, right? And you can
right.
send it whatever. You could play a Beethoven MP3, and it would come
Would the,
out through a trash can in a really crappy way, and you might not even recognize it as Beethoven, but you might. And it's just making that thing be the thing that resonates and makes the audio vibrate the air, and then the air comes to our ears.
So cool.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So like, um, I mean, another person I couldn't, if anyone's interested in, there's a guy named, and then David, no, not David. That's two different, that's a guy. What's his name? Paul Demarinis is a guy an artist from California who's been around for a while, but like he has a
Demarinis.
Demarinis, like Demarinis, I think.
Okay.
I can put it in here. He has a piece where you walk under falling water with an umbrella and you can hear music because he's vibrating these streams of water at audio rate, and then when it hits your umbrella becomes a little bit of a speaker, and then it vibrates the air, which then you hear in your ears. So you can actually you can kind of hear a song through the umbrella. It's wild. And then he has another piece that's much more interesting artistically, where he had bird cages with these little um, uh, pipes that are emitting gas, and so when they're lit, they become flame, and he turns them into a speaker. So the flame is actually vibrating, and you're hearing the sound of voices. And it's these, and there are these flames inside of bird cages in an installation, and every single one of them is playing and like a famous speech from a fascist dictator, and it's wild.
Whoa.
But anyway,
Wild.
yeah,
Okay,
his stuff is
sorry.
really
Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah. So, and then of course magnets. I've always been fascinated by magnets. Not that I'm not a physicist or a scientist or anything, but like I like to, they're amazing. Like that there's this unseeable force doing things. Um, so I'm learning a little bit more about what those are. I already mentioned the LCA thing. Um, and so yeah, I just started thinking about, are there people already doing, making traditional kind of speakers but with non-sustainable materials? I did find just today there's at least one Norwegian company claiming that they're doing it, so I'm just kind of interested in learning more about what they're actually doing. I didn't look into it much yet. And then where all this might be going is I have two projects. One of them is a play that I'm developing with a collaborator, and she wrote this beautiful play that's called Group Biography. It's inspired by some of the old those handprints made on a cave wall in Spain. It's a famous one. I can't remember what it's called, but they're from really early humans, and it's about deep time, and it's about ecological thinking, and it's about how like art and imagination and is something that humans have been doing since forever, and how we should think about it differently, and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to be sound designing that, and that's probably just going to involve like normal regular speakers and whatever, but maybe not, because I started thinking like if I could possibly apply some of the concepts that we're talking about in this class to the actual system or something. I mean, it would be very difficult, but maybe. And if not that, I have this residency at this place called Tableland Center for Bioregional Art, which is very near to us here and run by a friend of mine. And like that picture that I'm showing right there of that silo, I'll probably be doing a sound installation inside of that. And I don't know what that's going to be yet, but I'm hoping that some of this might lead to something that happens inside of that. I also had an idea. It's like, I want to make a sonic sundial. And then I got about that far and I have no idea what that means, but maybe something that's tracking the sun and turning it into sound that changes very gradually over time at the rate of the sun or something like that. I don't know how to do that, but anyway, that's where my head is at. It's a mess. I'm going to stop sharing.
Wow. Creativity is chaos. It's weird. You're
Yeah.
thriving. You're thriving.
I guess.
Yeah, this is brilliant. I love it. Wow. Resonating objects. That is so cool. It's because it's a way of demonstrating animacy, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Umbrella.
Vibrant Matter, you should read. I haven't read it myself. I've heard a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of discussions about it and I've listened to podcasts about it, but I haven't read it. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
On
Oh,
my list to actually read instead of just refer to and vaguely know about.
yeah. Yeah, it's a really influential text. It seems like a good thing to check out. Gosh, I love this concept of yeah, like the ecology of sound making objects. Yeah. Wow, really cool. So you're gonna build a speaker before next class?
I mean, that's why this is crazy because I don't think so.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I mean, you do have a lot going on. I think even just presenting just these explorations are fascinating and
Yeah,
worthwhile to share. And wherever you are in that process, come as you all are in our last class.
I
Uh,
even thought of like if I even just like some sort of like actually visually interesting diagram of like sort of deconstructing a speaker or just doing something with that. And even if it's just sort of more informational, it wouldn't I haven't thought of anything that makes it particularly would make it particularly interesting as an art object yet, but maybe if I just start thinking of it first as a making that diagram, it'll something. But even that, I feel like just because I could use that, I could take that in and put it on my wall in my classroom and talk about it for my students.
totally.
Something that's tracing all of the actual interconnections of the materials behind the thing.
Yeah, I think that makes so
Um,
much sense as an educator to pursue art, like education as an art form. And I feel like sound, I mean, for me personally, sound is such an esoteric terrain that I don't understand. And it's so cool to like vaguely start to understand how it works and like how sound operates through speakers. Because I feel like that's something that the common person has no idea about, and I think demystifying that a little bit is I mean, similar to Eve's presentation, just very illuminating. It's like exciting information to like learn and uncover. Because sound frequency is the sort of fundamental building blocks of all matter, right? Like vibration. So yeah, it's just so cool. And it's just so relatable. It's in all of our lives around us constantly.
mhm.
And I love the examples you put up, like David Tudor. I'm excited to check out Paul Demarinis too.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
should put a link in there. Um, Somebody said, "Oh, the study of speaker and its parts is very interesting." Somebody said, Megan said, maybe give a basic plan to make a speaker and see how others interpret the instructions. They may design something new. Yeah, that's cool.
I love that.
Yeah, because I actually like the idea of mystifying the idea of a speaker too, right? Because when
Yeah.
that's what happened to me when I started looking into it, I was like, God, it's amazing that, yeah, like I said, that so much complexity comes out of a thing that, it's like what's that kind of motor? A solenoid is the one that push and pull.
No idea.
It's like it's just going back and forth. That's what a speaker's doing
Yeah,
inside.
that's
It's wild.
wild.
I don't I like
Yeah, like
I like all of the ideas. I'm like, yes, do that. And then you had this other thing, and I'm like, yes, do that. I mean, you just you it seems like you have like a whole year of art making and more
Yeah.
that can drive you, with all of these different projects. And the residency sounds really fabulous. So.
yeah, it's a cool place.
Yeah, this feels like a long-term undertaking to really like flesh out. So it makes so much sense that like maybe next class you just have a design or something, whatever makes sense for you. Don't feel like you have to actually have the speaker. I was playing when I said you're gonna have a speaker next month, right?
Well, I mean, I could have some weird version of it or something. I don't know, some test or something.
I love teaching this class online because you get to work with people who are in different ecologies, like often all around the world. And you learn so much about different ecologies and cultures. But I also always kind of wish that like in our last critique, we could physically be in person and like
Yeah,
have our art objects or projects with us. Especially with like sound, like that's something even, and it's a shame. I should try. But a lot of sound artists who take this class, like they often don't even really try to share the sound. And it's like it's always such a bummer to me because I'm like it would be cool if you did have some sound element. We could, maybe we could hop on 10 minutes before we start to try to get the sound working or something. I know there's a way to do that on Zoom. Like even Colette, just hearing your video,
Yeah.
the audio, that would have been really cool.
Yeah,
So
we
just to
can. There's
say,
some setting you can check to send like
there's
actually.
a way to do it.
Yeah, it's just when you go to share, you have to put optimize video and sound. There's two boxes that you just click.
Share
But
sound.
even with that, it's like
Optimization.
the subtleties are not going to be picked up. But the
Yeah,
majority of, if you're playing a video, the sound will sound garbled if you do not have that box checked.
right.
And Colette, just to clarify, is that something that would be checked on your end as the presenter or me as the host?
No, it has to be checked by whoever is sharing their screen if they're going to be
Okay.
sharing a video or an audio.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
for the record, if anybody wants to do a sound check before our beginning of our next class, which other Eco Art Space members will be invited to join in on, just let me know and we'll plan to meet like 10 or 15 minutes beforehand. Another thing that people have done in the past is where you could just drop a link in the chat and we'll all go on mute and then each person plays it individually at the same time. And then we sort of circle back and like talk about it, just to say that that's an option too. Awesome. Thank you so much. Does any Erica or Megan oh, we have three more. Who would like to go next? Erica.
Oh,
Erica?
I can go or
Okay, great.
yeah. Let me see if I can, let's see. Let me try to share myself. If not, I might need you to.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the presentation fired up and ready.
Let's see. Do we want to share content only? I don't know. It's sharing like the sidebars and everything. Let's see.
If you hit slideshow, it should take on your full screen.
Here. Oh, presenter view.
Uh,
Oh,
Actually,
no. Uh-oh.
if you go back, you could hit escape.
Stop. What happened?
If you hit escape, I think, like in the upper left part of your
Oh,
key.
yeah. Okay.
So if you hit the slideshow button, not the arrow next to the slideshow button.
Right here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Um, so I
Wait,
initially
sorry, just to check. I'm still seeing it didn't blow up. Is anybody else seeing it, or are you still seeing the
screen share is paused. All right.
Yeah, I wonder, it's funny it paused it when you hit that. I could share it on my screen, Erica.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that. And just tell me when you want me to go to the next slide. Okay, can you guys all see that? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I originally signed up for the class, partly to help me work through an installation that I'm doing for an art kiosk in Redwood City. And um, the you can go to the next one.
Oops.
So the original, oops.
Sorry, I don't know what just happened. Where did it go? Oh no. Oh, here we go. Okay. Sorry about that.
So the idea for the installation was based on some really early murals that I did in 1988. This is dating me. But in grad school, I worked as a mural artist during the Central Park Zoo renovation. And I was painting the like in the aviary and the areas where the animals live in the zoo. You can continue. There's a couple slides of these murals. And proposed a couple different ideas for the installation, but the curator really liked this project a lot, and I haven't worked this way in a really long time. And then you can go to the next one. And so this is the art kiosk space that I'm going to be doing the installation in, and the um, and so you can continue on to the next one. So basically, the um, and I recently moved into a new home in Florence, Massachusetts. And when I was starting the project, it was still really nice weather out. And so I was working outside, and it's taken me a while to, like, I got a new compressor and spray guns, and I haven't worked with spray gun for a really long time. So I've been experimenting and getting the setup, and I'm working with muslin, and um, so part of the situation was, though, that in New England it got really cold really quickly, and so um, suddenly I was looking for indoor spaces that I could work, um, and you can go on to the next one. And so I have a space where I've moved it inside, and for a while, but it's just been a really like just the logistics of the project has taken me a lot of time to figure out, um, and there were a few other spaces that I approached to work, but they didn't want me spraying in the building, and even I mean, and I was originally spraying, with like acrylic type paints. But then as the class began, I, started thinking more, well, so working inside, you can go on to the next one. Um, so what I've decided to, um, create the whole underpainting by using this coffee ink. So I started, and I found this recipe in the Google Docs, as, looking through all the different things. And so I've been experimenting with using coffee ink. And so this drawing is, the browns are coffee. And I did use watercolor for the greens. And I met with Devan yesterday. We went through our um, presentations, and we were talking a lot about making greens naturally, which can be really tricky. Um, and I also think that uh, working in the indoor space using more natural spray material is gonna work out better. I mean, I feel like just with the timing, like the project's only a few months away, and um, uh, that I'm not sure I'm going to have time to research and create natural greens. Um, but um, But so far, this is where I'm at. I'm really having a lot of fun with using the coffee ink, and and you can go, and I think, and also because um, the uh, the coffee is also connected to the rainforest, like growing in the rainforest, which I really like. And this is just a study. And the project, though, has gotten really complicated because it's so big. It's 14 by 14 foot square, and just working on that scale has been really challenging to set up. and as I was um, actually, Anna, I was looking at some of your pieces in the one presentation that you gave, um, and where you were doing really pretty large scale works, but they're pieced together with a lot of smaller pieces. And I was wondering if that might have been, there are going to be a number of other panels other than just the large backdrop in the kiosk. There'll be other panels that are hanging in front of that. But just in terms of the scale of it, I'm wondering if it might make sense to work in, piece together smaller pieces to make it a little more accessible for working.
Erica, the other thing I was thinking, why that might actually be a good route for you, is because if you're working that way, it might make sense that you're doing it all on, high quality Stonehenge paper and you just buy a bunch of those papers. Because what I'm wondering is if you have tested yet using this ink on the fabric that you laid out,
Yeah,
because it receives ink so differently than paper does.
yeah,
So
I
you
know.
might also run into some technical issues there that you might not be expecting. So I'd definitely do a test with that as well. And if you, yeah, paper is certainly an option. You just create kind of like tiles and then you just pin them up next to each other. The downside is you are not, you have such an atmospheric stroke. And I mean, it's a huge compliment. It's like they're very impressionistic, and like even just the way you handle in this picture and the previous ones, uh, light through stroke and these sort of all layering strokes and shades. I think it would be hard to keep like large strokes like that consistent over swaths of paper. However,
Yeah,
you are using an air gun, so actually I kind of take
yeah,
it because you could just spray it, you could lay all your papers out and just do sections at a time. Maybe you're working on like the top left like 9 pieces of paper and you have those pinned up on a wall or on the floor, and then you sort of like tessellate and shift down a little bit as you like move into different sections of the piece.
hmm,
Yeah, that's really cool.
yeah.
There
So I
is
just today I started realizing like I'm making this, maybe I'm making this like so much more complicated by trying to do it all on one panel. I mean, and I have experimented some with spraying directly on the muslin, and um, I'm using unprimed muslin right now. I don't know if like um, and
the thing is you wouldn't want to prime it because if you primed it with a polymer based primer,
yeah,
it
no,
wouldn't receive the ink. The ink would probably bead up. It
yeah,
wouldn't hold because it's like a water-based pigment on top of a polymer. It's like if you put,
yeah, no, I don't want to do that. And I have done a
yeah,
bunch of experiments with the coffee ink directly on the muslin, and it's really nice actually.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I haven't sprayed the coffee yet, so that's kind of I want to do that tomorrow. Um, and because in order to get that atmospheric quality of the rainforest, is really done with the spray gun.
Yeah,
Get that misty kind of sensation.
yeah.
Um, but then and But then also, and then this is part of the property that I just bought. So I really feel like this class is going to help me to set up, a sustainable studio at my home studio. And the property has a lot of pollinator gardens everywhere. And in the front of the house, there's two huge walnut trees, which I'm really excited about now. And I don't know what with walnut trees if they produce every year, or if there's a year that is dormant.
I
Um,
have not encountered the trees that I return to each year for the last 3 years I've never experienced a dormant year, but it's possible.
because there
I
weren't
do.
like I go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I do think that sometimes they have like heavy years and light years. Like it doesn't seem like it's never totally dead, but I have experienced like fluctuations in how much.
Yeah, because there wasn't a lot. I just I bought this property in August, so it's still really new. And I built this bridge over the little stream, which was fun.
Wow.
And so I'm just really like, it's really been wonderful, like seeing how a lot of you are working with the land and the environment that you're living on. And then maybe just the next slide. Um, um, I really like this quote with Nick Netto was in the presentation that you had downloaded for us, where he says, I suggest that you take a whole year to observe what materials and resources you have access to around you. Learn a bit more about them and the history of your land. Once you begin to take stock of the life and materials around you, oak, black walnut trees, farms, etc., you'll develop a familiarity with when to harvest, store, render, setting up stations for this process outside or in your workspace. So um, I really feel like I want to give myself that full year to kind of really experience the seasons of the land and figure out how to work more with the land. And the other really interesting thing about this property, you can go to the next one. I had to have some masonry work done in the house. So the house was built in 1860, and the mason had pulled out a bunch of old bricks in order to patch up this one corner section, and these are handmade bricks, and it was so interesting to see the fingerprints and handprints from
Wow.
back in that time. And I also found out that and I didn't realize when I bid on the house, but since I found out the home was built by Cynthia Dorsey, who was very involved in the abolitionist movement, and Florence, Massachusetts has a big history around that with Sojourner Truth, and so Cynthia Dorsey, um, uh, who she was a black woman from Pittsfield originally, and um, she and her husband owned 6 acres of the land around where I live. And he was much older, and when he passed away, then she built this house that I'm living in now. So I'm really fascinated with the history of the property. Um, and not only it was originally the Nonotuck tribe before that, but just the history of the abolitionist movement is really fascinating. And like these bricks were just really exciting to find in the
Erika,
process.
that is really special. You should consider connecting with I'm trying to remember in Florence, there's this venue space. It's partly a church and
Oh, Bombyx.
yes, and
Yeah,
right
yeah.
outside where I think they're giant pine trees where Sojourner Truth and
The park is right
gather.
there.
Yeah, you should go in there and
Yeah,
tell them about these bricks and that history. Could be a really interesting connection to make. That is really cool
yeah.
to see the handprints in those bricks. We do have to move on, unfortunately. I'm sorry, guys, we're gonna run
That's
out of
what. That's okay.
time. I think I miscalculated it. Wait, because we still have
Uh-oh.
I have to go,
Megan.
but I can be quick about
Okay, and Megan,
it
you're gonna
too,
go as
right?
well, right? Great.
I mean,
Okay,
I we
if you have to leave early, go for it. No worries, but we're gonna keep going and
good.
have your full 15 minutes. Don't worry. And one thing, Erica, to check out, I typed this in the chat for amazing natural greens. Look up
Oh,
buckthorn sap green, and you have buckthorns in your bioregion, so you should be able to make that. You can find
buckthorn
recipes
sap
on Google.
greens.
Yeah, buckthorn. They're like you make it from the buckthorn berries.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, who would like to go next?
I can
Oh,
go.
great.
I can share it too. I think I sent it to
Awesome.
you, but I can do
Okay.
it.
Erica, by the way, my friend makes buckthorn berry sap. Um, the berries are in different shades and different, like the different spectrums give you different results of green. So if you want a range of greens, separate them and create different inks. If you want just one collective ink, you could combine them.
Yeah, I'd love to know who your friend is. Is she
Yeah,
local here?
Candace Jensen, I'm going to type her in.
Okay.
She's actually a former student. She runs a residency called In Situ Polyculture Commons in Vermont, which you should apply to.
Yeah, because I
Put her
saw
in the
you're actually
chat.
showing, well, let's finish
Yeah.
everybody finish their presentation.
Is that working?
Yes.
Okay, I can be kind of quick with it. So I'm coming in as a public school art teacher, an artist, and my partner was Colette, and I was telling her that I was kind of approaching this in two parts with trying to prepare my studio and the art classroom to be more sustainable, but also do some of my own artwork on the side. And this will be kind of more geared towards the classroom because that's where my focus has been in September and October, and it takes a lot to get the year set up. But I just wanted to share a couple things that I've been doing. I'm in my third year at this school. I moved back to New York about 4 years ago, and I've been teaching in Red Hook, New York. It's in the Hudson Valley, and I came here really thinking this, if you teach here, I would think about all like the outdoor programming and being surrounded by nature. And there's a lot of Waldorf schools here and democratic schools, and so I just assumed that the schools would kind of be prioritizing environmental education in some way. And I was a little dismayed when I got here and realized that a lot of the priority right now has to do with AI and connecting kids on one-to-one computers. And I don't know if you've probably heard
Oh,
about this kind of stuff in the news, but I was a little discouraged that we're still coming out of a lot of plans and things that happen with COVID that, kids are expecting to be sitting at a computer in most of their classes. And I very quickly set up a situation in mind where they do not use them almost at all because I just couldn't believe that that was where we were still at. So, but I've been really excited since I've been here connecting with local organizations and getting some artists in. And as of last year, we started doing an event for Earth Day, and that was kind of how I got things rolling with being able to get some grants and have some Earth action pieces that we had and that were really successful. And then this past month, I've been just working on coordinating how we can build it with more teachers into next year. So I invited an artist back in the spring that came and did a printmaking project with the students. This is eighth graders. And they made prints and they actually did theirs on muslin too. And they did it in groups. And they worked from things from the outdoors. And we do have access to a lot of outdoor space. We're on a really nice campus. So they had a lot that they could work from. And they just did these quick 4x6 prints. And then her idea was to have them do these strips, sort of like the gates from the Christo and Jean Claude piece from back in, I think that was like 2007 in New York City, where they made those fabric pieces. I don't know if anyone remembers, they're like orange and they hung in
yeah.
Central Park. So that was kind of her idea to have this immersive thing that people would be able to walk through. We were trying to make it very visible. And at the edge of where these are placed was a walking path where a lot of the parent drop off and pickup happens, and there's traffic of people kind of walking in that area. So it culminated in this, and there was sound. I don't think I can put. I don't know if you will. That went with the piece, um, and we just kind of spent time outside during this exhibit. Um, And it was really great. And by doing it outside and inviting the school, more teachers saw it and they wanted to get involved. And so I said, okay, we'll figure out a way to get more teachers to connect with artists next year. And I use this great program. It's called the Education Network for Teachers and Artists. And this woman connects visual artists to teachers. And so if any of you are ever really interested in working in public schools, there might be some kind of program like that.
Is that
But
a
it,
local program to use?
it's local.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not. But I mean, there are ways to get artists into
That's great.
schools, but this was just so amazing that there was this woman that had started this organization. And so she does a lot of the work that most teachers don't want to do because they don't have the time to figure out how to coordinate all that. And then I've since met a lot of artists through this program, and actually this organization that I used to work at before I started teaching here. Um, and they also have a lot of artists that they use for like after school classes and summer programming. And it was like a networking thing that I was there and I was, teaching classes, but also connecting and just like making art through the studio. And now I've been able to connect this woman who does the networking with more of these artists. And I can kind of choose who I want to work with. And then she does all of the paperwork with them to get them into the schools in the area. So we found somebody that's going to be working with our English teacher next year. And that's been really exciting. So this is called the Neighborhood Print Studio. It's part of something called The Draw in Midtown Kingston. But they're just a like community print studio. You can become a member or just kind of come and drop in. And it's a communal space. And they have this event every year for the past 3 years. A couple events that I kind of wanted to highlight. One was like this Eco Arts Week, and a bunch of artists come that do sustainable art um, projects, and they have workshops for an entire week where people can, like all ages, can come and take the classes. And that's another place where I've been looking to, because it's so great to work with local artists that kids can meet and that they can see that they're working and showing locally. So that's where I've been kind of going and finding people that are interested in working with youth. And then they have this steamroller print fest. I don't know if anyone has ever done something like this, but you print a giant block on a two by two piece of linoleum, and then a steamroller prints it. And so this has been a really fun community event. They've been doing it for the past 3 years. I've been participating. That's my son. But it's, they do them on these, again, these giant sheets of muslin. So when this artist that I met last year wanted to do the same kind of thing with my kids, I was like, oh, this is so funny. This is all kind of connecting. This is already happening in the community. And so this happens, yeah, every year. I've participated 3 years, and there's an opening tonight, and the piece that I did over the summer is going to be in it. So it's been fun because it's a way that I can kind of manage bringing these artists to the classroom, but also getting to participate when I can, because this is usually in the summer where I have more time. And a lot of the pieces that people make, they're drawing, because it is like summer when we do this. And there's so much like around to look at and see. So a lot of the prints end up being kind of celebrations of the environment that we're in. And that's been really, really great. And then so yeah, it's kind of a fundraiser too. It's like everybody makes an edition of six. And then a portion of the money goes to the organization. And I like stuff like that and showing kids these kinds of things and doing it with them because so much in traditional art with youth is like they're used to making like a portfolio for themselves, their independent pieces that they take home at the end of like the semester or whatever. And I really like doing these collaborative things where there's no real name that they can attach. They did it all together. There were so many of them because I see over like, I don't know, 200 kids in a semester. And so it's like, there's just so many kids to work with that you can do these big collaborative things in a public school and you see them regularly. And I think I wrote in the free write that it's also kind of one of the challenges is because sometimes parents are like, I want to see the still life and the
Mhm.
portrait and so you got to kind of do a little bit of both in some ways, or they can take something home and also work collaboratively. I think I've talked about this puppet group before, how there's a lot of puppet groups in this area. Processional Arts is one of my favorites, and they do. I think this may they do it to show you. Flip. That's from their annual Sinterklaas parade that they do in Rhinebeck, which unfortunately for the past 2 years has had to be canceled because of lack of funds. And also I don't know if you know, but they do the giant puppets for New York City's Halloween parades.
Wow.
And I think a lot of the puppeteers burn out after that one. And this one was just like maybe too much too soon. But they
I
also,
always wonder who made, they're just so incredible.
yeah.
Like back, I was living in New York City for 6 years. I was always blown away by the craftsmanship in those.
Yeah, so their studio is in Red Hook, which is really close to where I'm teaching. So I was really
Oh,
excited to be working here because I was like, oh, I can connect with the processional arts, but they're in a kind of rough moment with this festival that they were doing in our area. And they're still deciding how to keep it going. But a lot of it is because the puppeteers are like in their 70s and 80s, and there's no young volunteers to kind of take it on. It
yeah.
is a lot of work to make handmade puppets every year for these events. So I've been trying to get, and a lot of my students do participate because how they work is like they set up a series of workshops where you come and you do the armature, then you come and do the um, paper mache, and then you do the painted colors. That's like the third step, and they invite anyone that wants to do it to come, and then anyone can carry the puppets. So it's all very organized, but they're dealing with some funding issues right now.
What's
But
the name of the collective or project that's
it's
doing?
called Processional Arts is the name of the
Oh, okay, that's the name. Gotcha.
group. Uh-huh.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been trying to get them to come to the school.
Oh, that'd be
And they've been
amazing.
always like, we're too busy. And so then I went to one of their workshops and she was like, yeah, I really prefer when the teacher just comes to me and then I can like tell her all my tricks and then they go back.
Fun.
So I'm slowly kind of getting more involved with them, but it is a lot of like, it's tricky for me to like be able to do that uh, too much at
You
this
should,
point, but I'm hoping
you
down
should
the
get
road.
some professional development funding.
I know. And I'm like, they do retreats and stuff. And like probably in the summer I'd have more time, but they're really, really great organization. So there's some more. And there's always like an animal that is celebrated during this kind of winter parade, solstice
Oh,
celebration.
cool. Is
Really
that like
cool.
paper mache
Paper
over?
mache, and then they just use colored tissue for the coloring of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then do you know anything about the framework of it? Is it like
It's
wired?
just wire and tape.
Wow.
It's really
Yeah.
we just
Amazing.
did they were doing the mushrooms in Hudson last week and I went with my son and it was really easy. Like it was just step one, just make the armature, come back next week and do the paper mache. So it's really they've been going for a long time. So
And then they just have like LED lights in there or something.
mhm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And then there's like parade bands and stuff that play in the streets. So and then there's another one called Arm of the Sea. They're based in Saugerties. And a lot of their stuff is about kind of teaching about the history of the river and I think the one they did last summer was also about the history of Saugerties and how they were a town of they have a long history of being factories for paper mill and I don't know. They're very educational and historical, but also really fun. And they have a residency program where you can come and make the puppets and act because they change every year and they travel. So that's another group that I've been connecting with, and they do a lot of really immersive stuff when you go to the show. They have like little stands where they're kind of teaching kids about parts of the river and the things you find in the river and stuff like that. Um, but really beautiful hand painted backdrops and puppets. And then they'll come to like big parks and set up and a little traveling circus almost. Um, and then another thing that I've kind of run into in this area is that the population has been kind of changing in the past, especially 10 years, but there's like a real lack of knowledge of indigenous culture and Latino culture making its way into the public school education. So I also really like to make sure that I'm kind of traveling around and looking at the local festivals that are happening for different populations. And this one is a really beautiful festival that happens in Poughkeepsie because they happen to have a really large population of Oaxacan um, folk. And they have this beautiful Guelaguetza festival, which is a celebration of corn. And there's also a long history of Mexican, they call it like cartoneria, which is like the use of cardboard and making puppets. And also, if you know what alebrijes are, you see them in Oaxaca. They're like
Yeah.
those fantastical creatures that are painted really colorfully. There's like a whole history there with using recycled paper products to make these beautiful puppets. So sometimes I really like to try to highlight these groups as well, in addition to the puppet troops that they're more familiar with in the area. But I do have a lot more like Mexican and Guatemalan populations in the schools that have changed in the past 10 years. Like Kingston has a really large population of Guatemalans from the area of Petén, which is like the rainforest region that happen to be here. So it's really kind of been interesting how the population and culture of the school is changing. Um, and it's a really beautiful opportunity for some of this, like, cross-cultural education and to be able to happen. I work with a woman from Mexico that is just a parent at the school, but wants to share in the tradition of making this puppetry. And she also designs the Day of the Dead installations, and she goes all over all the schools in the area and sets up the altars and works with the students and teaches them the paper mache process of making the skulls. And so that's been a kind of newish in the past few years tradition that has been happening just because it was a parent that came and said, like, I have this skill and I want to share it. And so that happens sometimes, and it's really fortunate for us. So it's been really fun. So this is like kind of just been an ongoing thing for me is just kind of to travel around and try to find these folks because it's not really going to happen. There's not the kind of PD you're going to really find in the schools. There was a lot of AI PD last year, and even New York State's Teachers Association that has a conference every year, theirs was completely AI themed. And so it's just like not. Um, it's hard to find, teachers, I think, also find it hard to find accessible resources and ways to figure out how to bring more sustainable education, environmental education into the classrooms. You kind of have to dig around and find it, which is one of the reasons why I came to this class. I love seeing all the different artists and immediately think of ways that this could be like incorporated in a lesson plan and things like that. So I really appreciate listening to everybody's presentations in that way and encourage people to, if you can ever connect with a school, it's really like you get so many kids and people to see and work with. And anyway, so, and another really amazing resource we have, we're like 8-minute drive from Bard, and Bard has this really amazing curatorial program. And they had a beautiful show 2 years ago called Indian Theater, introduced kids to all kinds of Native American artists from around the country. And we focused on this artist. You may know, um, now I'm blanking. Hold on.
Is it Diani Whitehawk?
Yes, Danny. And we did like a whole well, I think the biggest takeaway from her show was this idea of reclaiming abstract art for Native voices and the approach to teaching abstraction in schools. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'll never teach it the same way again. And like how there's so many ways that Indigenous groups have used abstraction before, the ones that you usually find in an art history course being talked about. So that was really exciting. And it was really simple to kind of bring that back and do like we did the usual like learning how to do color, like work with color and blend and draw from we picked leaves and we drew them, and then they were able to like kind of come up with their sort of own abstract designs based on those observations and create their kind of own mashup of a Danny Whitehawk inspired piece, or just kind of understand that process more. And it is also like hard for me sometimes. You go into school and try to think about how to incorporate works from other cultures and indigenous artworks in a way that isn't authentic or just kind of like appropriating somebody else's piece. And so how to do that in a meaningful way for the kids. And it really was just about like have them observe their own surroundings and come up with their own shapes and their own designs. And they're not going to copy her thing, but maybe they use the same materials. And so that was a really great just like show to see and then be able to think about it in teaching. And so yeah, those are just some of those
Thank
pieces.
you so much, Anna.
Yeah, I can stop.
We do have to move on, unfortunately, but it's such a rich lineage that you're tapping into. It's so accessible too. And it's like it's so I think in art spaces too, getting kids to work sculpturally, there's so much education that happens there when you enter into the third dimension. And I threw in the chat, I was working with this Puerto Rican mask maker for a while, making the abrijas. How did you say it?
Alebrijes.
Oliviers, yeah. So we brought, and it was so simple. It was amazing how simple it was. Like, I mean, the foundation for the mask was just simply like thick paper or cardboard, and then you're just doing the tape and then the paper mache over it. And I just think it's an exciting lineage to tap into, like locally and just sort of transnationally, that you're like kind of doing thinking about cultural sustainability, you're like keeping those threads alive. And also, it's so accessible in terms of materials. It's like just go find like scrap paper and like cardboard. So yeah, I'm very excited about all of this. It's beautiful, beautiful practices. Does anybody have any other comments before we go to Megan? I really hope you can tap into some of the elders who are like, oh, doing this amazing sculpture work that are like getting too old for it to keep going. It's just so devastating that they're like paralleling that with like this huge shift in orientation towards AI and education. It's just like, no. Yeah, may you land some professional and development funding and go study with them and bring all of that knowledge to your students.
Yeah, it's great. Someone with a young kid, I would be so happy to have more of this kind of stuff around me. So, but maybe I can make some of it happen. So that's really inspiring. And I'm a child of bread and puppet theater in Vermont, so and that was like a huge influence on me. So yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
Thank you so much. Snaps and claps. Awesome. Megan, last but certainly not least.
That's
And if
okay. Can
anybody's
you hear me
go,
okay?
yes. Mhm.
Okay. And bear with me. I didn't have a presentation, so I just put some windows together of some stuff. Let me see if I can share. So let me know. How do you do? Oh, can we do our full desktop?
Yeah, you should have that option. I think it like comes up as one of the options.
Oh, it's coming up with an alert. Let's see. Oh, give me just 1 second. Oh, it says let's see, is that working? Ah, there we go. Okay, is that working?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can,
You just might want to full screen the window.
yeah,
Yeah.
hit allow. Okay, all right. Although, hold on, I'm gonna hit escape because it's just a little bit too big, sorry. So I am a fine artist and a graphic designer. And I was afforded, we never get free locations actually to exhibit artwork. And the upcoming in March and April of 2026, I've been offered a free space at the People's Building in Aurora, Colorado. During that time of March and April, there's an a biennial event called MoPrint, which is a celebration of anything printmaking. And so with this free space, as you can kind of see here in this space, I met with them and they said, "Oh, you can exhibit your artwork." I always feel like it's better. Obviously, I could put a solo exhibition in here, but I would prefer to show with people. And so because it's the month of printmaking, there will be a lot of events that feature lithography and, all your traditional printmaking. And so with this class, I would like to share what I do. I haven't been able to afford printmaking just because it's pretty expensive to go into the studios, buy all the equipment, the inks, the presses, everything like that. So I've been actually doing printmaking at home, making my own plates, and that hopefully ties into the sustainability aspect because my plates, when I'm done with them, I make them with powdered gelatin, vegetable glycerin and water, and you can compost those as long as you wash them with soap and water and stuff like that. So during COVID, I made a pretty large piece actually, which is this art piece. And it's funny because it's interesting to hear how other artists have used muslin. It was the only way at the time that I could figure out how to make an extremely large piece. So there's like 3 pieces of fabric sewn together. See if I can kind of blow into that a little bit. And I have another photo of it as well too. So it's like a really large piece if you can see it just for scale. Zoom out of that. I make my gelatin plates, as I mentioned, from powdered gelatin, glycerin, and water. And what I'd like to do at this event is have other artists, where I'm going to be, for the first time, curating a group of artists together. I've always curated like my own work and my own shows and stuff like that, but I have a group of artists that I've reached out to that have unconventional printmaking methods. And so we're basically just going to show other methods that can be printmaking sort of off the press. So like kitchen lithography and gel plates and, 5 or 10 other different methods. I will be bringing my piece. But what I thought would be very interesting would be to, since the show will be up for 2 months, there's also another art organization in the area called DAVA, and it's Downtown Aurora Visual Arts. They engage youth in arts education. So since it will be up for 2 months, I'd like to organize bringing in my plates, handing out my recipe for free, having a large scale piece of muslin, and asking anyone, adults and children, they can cut out their own little human figure, and we can continue making a whole another piece actually. So making a really large piece.
Megan, is that how you made the first piece?
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually made it in my home on my kitchen table. So it like measures.
Was it participatory? Like people made these figures?
Yeah, so what I would like to do, so I had like about 20 different shapes of little human figures, as you can see. I made a little gel plate that was probably like, 8 by 10 or whatever. And so I was able to, so each one of these was printed by hand. So I inked up the burlap. See if I can go into some other photos of it. That helps explain. Let me go back to my other photos here. Sorry if I'm flipping around on you a little bit. What's a nice, easy way to show this? Sorry, like tons of photos. Okay, here's a good photo right here. So each little individual figure was a piece of burlap that I cut out I ink up the plate and then you can see the burlap is actually sitting on the surface. So there's a moment where you're pressing it in, and as you see all around the figure, you need to erase away all of the ink so that it doesn't print. And what I'd like to do as a community project is just have this available. And since the People's Building, they have shows and other stuff. So as many times as I can do it, I'd like to have like this large piece of muslin fabric and then just see if I can be there, at other openings, just, tucked away in the corner, but have like this large piece that people can come up and they can cut out their own shape. And what I would really like about this is that it's whatever people imagine, their head or their body or their shape can be any shape. And that's, I think, the most beautiful thing about this.
Hmm.
Would
I
be
love those, even just the muslin as art objects, like those cutouts.
yeah. So here's like another picture. But so when I've done this activity before, when we display this, sorry if I'm making anyone sick or nauseated.
That's great.
So this was really fun. So then I brought this into, once the piece was hanging, I was asking people to come and make their own little people. And so people cut out their own shapes and they pressed it into the gelatin. I loved this one like a lot. I loved his interpretation of this was it's a hand and it's like running legs. He's an artist as well. Let me see if I can hit escape. Where's some good? Oh, here, this is this final piece that he made. So what I'd like is like to join all of these up because my daughter is at CSU, Colorado State University, Warner College, studying ecosystem science and sustainability. And we have so many questions, or we have so many conversations about, greenwashing and da da da, and how you talk about things in art, instead of just making something the color green or greenwashing it, like, is your practice sustainable? So I like using the Akua soy-based inks. They're non-toxic. It's a non-toxic printmaking method. You can't necessarily compost the soy-based inks because there's other elements in them, but they are definitely more eco-friendly than your typical intaglio or lithography inks and stuff like that. So they're non-toxic, actually, they claim that you can work with. So like you can work with children and not worry about, all the heavy chemicals and stuff like that. I can compost my plates, which is great. It's portable. It's easy to go, share my process with people. So yeah, so that's the project. I can keep going, but I figured I'd stop because we're well over time. But does anyone have questions or am I missing any components?
I love it. I want to see if anybody wants to say something before I do.
Oh, here, I'll share a video while we're waiting. Where is this? There's one.
Megan, I was just going to
Yeah.
say, so I recently served as a juror for Apex Art in New York City,
Yeah.
and the best proposal that I saw was I wasn't necessarily interested in the subject, but they were bringing in kind of demystifying printmaking into the gallery. So it was like they were going to set up the gallery and have the ability to do like 12 different printmaking processes inside the gallery and then bring in different communities. And the topic was hip hop. So it was like the community could bring in a photo that was meaningful for them that had to do with the subject, and then they could choose which like which printmaking methods they wanted to use. And it just seemed like it was a really rich way of engaging the community and also giving like a hands-on experience. So I just really want to encourage you. I think this is a terrific project and way to use the space that can, impact community the most, right?
How
That's
do I unshare? Let them all here. We can go. I go back to here, stop sharing. Yeah. Um, no, I think that's a great idea. Yeah. Um, ugh, lost my train of thought of what I was gonna say.
Sorry, I
That's
realized I
okay.
just called you Erika, Megan. I apologize.
Oh, that's fine. That's okay.
That's such a great comment, Colette. And I love that. I love the prompt in general. Like, and there's so many different ways to think through being human and express like our understanding of what it is to be human.
Hmm.
I loved even in your
Yeah.
writing, Megan, when you were showing us the website, it looked like you were using human as a verb, which I thought was
Mhm.
really cool in the way you're talking about the project. It's such a great participatory project. I love it.
Well, it's like we're going to be in the people's building. And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, it just makes sense to
it's
bring.
so
I
perfect.
made that
Yeah.
piece. It only was shown for 30 days and it's been sitting, it's been folded up and sitting. And I'm like, why don't I, as artists, we always think, and this is, I guess, the sustainable part of it. I always think to myself, I need to make the next thing. I need to make that next thing. And as of just the last couple months, I've been really not complaining, but just resource, limited and economically limited. And so I've been doing a practice of what can I make? And I just made all my Christmas gifts with like under $100. And like almost with just utilizing everything I had. I'm like, I went out, I foraged for seeds. I used my printer way past the point of where it says you got to change your cartridge. So it's just like it's like this borderline being frugal, but also like, being smart about it, stretching the resources. How far can we push this? Because my mind thinks, oh, I got to go buy another cartridge. No, I don't. Let's just wait till it totally runs out. But then I came up with a printmaking method that I was like, oh, since I don't have much color, I'm going to actually make it look like it's kind of ghosted on there anyway. So it's just, kind of running with it a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
but the thing I've learned, oh, she just left, but what I like most with the gel plate is every time I put it, that's why I suggested you, Seth, to why don't you just write a basic plan up? Every time I've shared this process a lot. I've had a lot of people make the art with me, and especially kids. And every time I do, as myself, as an artist, I'm like always asking, hey, how did you just do that? You know, and I'm learning so much all of the time from the people who actually go through my little 3 little steps or whatever. And they're like, should I be doing it like this? I'm like, you're doing fine. Just do these basic things because the way you do it will be correct. It's and they're like, well, can I take it out of the plate? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's see what happens when you do that. Like it's just been a kind of a go with it, go with the flow. Watch what happens in the process. And I'm like totally shocked every single time when I don't have too many rules laid out. I have the basic rules laid out, the basic parameters to stay within. But I'm blown away by what people create each time.
Megan, it's such an asset to have meet somebody who has an understanding of sustainable approaches to printmaking. I haven't like come across that before. And if you feel comfortable or open to sharing our resources, I would love to include them in the
I
resource.
always, yeah,
That would
always
be
do.
amazing because I've had a number of people ask me about that and I don't know, I haven't come across it yet. So I think that is really special what you're doing. The other thing I wanted to say is that I want you to get funding. 'Cause I don't want like lack of resources is a great catalyst to push us to find sustainable approaches to our art practices, right? Like foraging
Yeah.
in the landscape around us. So it's like really amazing the ways that it is pushing you to orient towards a sustainable practice. But I wonder too
Mhm.
about like looking into local art council funding. I mean,
Mhm.
albeit there's like a lot of federal shifts that are happening right now that are pulling a lot of art funding. But I just think that with a project that's so participatory like this, it's really easy to advocate for funding.
Yeah,
And
grant writing is my Achilles heel at the moment. So,
grant writing,
yeah,
it's okay. It's so
mhm,
hard, awkward when you start, but everybody can get good at it. And it just takes practice and iteration. And then once
mhm,
you start, the easier it gets. And you're just basically like copying and pasting the same thing into all these different applications. But and I mean, have a friend who's a writer look at what you're writing and help you,
yeah,
take them out
yeah,
for coffee. So I was in this workshop. This is the last thing I'll say, and then we can end. But I was in this workshop this week with this brilliant graphic designer who's talking about how he works in the world. He called it transdisciplinary work. I think that was no, it was something intersubjectivity. Anyways, so oftentimes in a like in a project, you'll have like, so this is a very transactional model. You have like person
yeah,
A, project A, person B, project B. This is a way more sustainable model where you have like project person, organization XYZ A, then you have somebody else that there's like three components because there's sort of an ecosystem that's going on here. So he gave an example of like, okay, so say this is you have your project idea, then here's the people's what's it called? The people's
people's building.
people's building. And then you
Mhm,
find like a funder or somebody and you're like, hey,
mhm,
I'm an artist. I'm doing this project with this person. Will you support it? Because he would often, this is like the model he uses all the time, because people will reach out to him because he's part of this really like highly kind of sought after design firm where they'll do like Daft Punk albums and stuff like that. People will reach out to him and be like, hey, I love your work. We don't have any funding, but we would love for you to come work with our community. And he'll be like, okay, cool. And then I'll go somewhere where they have funding and say, hey, I want to do this project. Will you support it? Because also by them being a partner in it, it's like something new might come out of it that could inform something that you do in the future. So they're
yeah.
kind of like investing in this project. So, anyways, just to say, uh, yeah, like I think it could be cool to think of in the same way you're working with multiple humans to generate this tapestry, how might you also consider expanding your ecosystem of like collaborators that might help make it a more sustainable project for you? Even if you're collaborating with another artist who helps take off some of the work and even cost maybe for you just to be part of the project, and then you're like sharing, and then maybe something gets born out of that that generates into something new.
I have had a little bit of mini success. Like I showed it to Akua Inks, who actually makes it, and they helped donate some ink actually to me. So, and I said,
That's so good. Yeah,
it's not going to be going, this isn't like
Mhm.
stuff that goes into my pocket. And, I'm teaching my process, giving the free recipes away so people can actually do this at home too. And then also giving them a list of supplies that they can, they're non-toxic materials that they can use in their home.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, that's such a great example of that. Going to like, yeah, it's like going to Blick. Hey, I'm gonna do this huge art project. Will you donate a bunch of materials to me? Because all the students will be like, oh, Blick, and that's where I can get art supplies in the future.
Right.
And then you get all this free art supplies.
Yep.
So, anyways, that's awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank
Meg.
you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks you guys for sticking around.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to see y'all in about a month's time. And as I mentioned, we're going to every time like to Patricia and I like to open up the last session to the wider eco art space community. If there's anybody who doesn't want to share outside of the class, we can arrange for starting at an offset time in our class. So no problem there. But you do have to let me know that sooner than later so I can organize that with timing. But otherwise, yeah, so it'll be the same format. We'll do projects or presentations. It'll be the same format as today. Um, and we will have to be on like keep time a bit better. Part of that's my fault because I didn't calculate it right. But um and yeah, and we might run. I kind of think I kind of want to just do like 2.5 hours, just like plan to do that, so it's not so rushed. And if anybody has to go early or wants to present early, just let me know stuff like that ahead of time. Seth.
But Anna, I just also
Yeah.
want to point out that only half of our class was here today.
Yeah, I did get a
So,
notice from one or
but
two.
I mean
Yeah.
that just means that the presentations, like everybody is going to end up having 5 minutes max, right?
Well, this is the thing is, Colette, nobody, it's never the full class that's there. It's like
Okay.
we're probably gonna have 6 or 7 people next time too. Because like there's a couple people that had to drop out for like life circumstances that were happening. They're still like watching the recordings and they are excited to like follow along and they're just like this is not a time where I like they just have to set offset their project time. But yeah, so I do know that it won't be the full class, like it'll be at least a couple less.
What's
And
the next date again? Sorry.
next date,
Next
let
date is,
me tell you in 1 second.
sorry. I know I have it in an email and I
Oh,
forgot to put it
you're
on my
so
calendar.
fine. It's the tw December 20th.
Okay.
Yeah. If we get a full class, if we do have a full class, I'm very open to extending it into a 3 hour session. Um, but I want to just saying that that's something I'm really open to. We could play it by ear. If you know that you can't stay that third potential hour, just shoot me an email ahead of time. We'll schedule to have you in the first part. Yeah. I'm
Sounds
gonna
like
send
three
an,
hours is a good idea.
you
If
think
we
3 hours is a good
if people
idea?
if I mean if people agree, obviously, but
Cool. Does anybody else have any feelings about that? Okay. Okay.
is
What I'm gonna do is because it can be confusing when we all sign on with a bunch of new people, it can be hard to sort of assess exactly who is and isn't here. So what I like to do is I'm gonna send a schedule and people can sign up on the schedule just so I know who's presenting and like when they might need to go. Cool.
is the expectation like I'm just trying to think of there's going to be a bunch of new people. Are they expecting to see sort of finished things or like an
No.
object or
No, it's
they
process
want to do they want us to
oriented, baby. It's all process oriented.
okay, I
No
just make
way. I will
sure.
advocate for y'all if there's any expectations like that. No, I think people are understanding that these are projects that you are working on that are in dialogue with things that we're talking about in class and your own practice. And so sometimes it can be really helpful to give a super brief background about yourself so people understand who you are, what your practice
Yeah.
is about, even in just a slide. Like, hey, I am like for me, it would be like artist, art educator, community art facilitator. And like, I'm working on this in this class, something like that. Yeah. Like, it would be great to introduce yourself. It's such a crapshoot too, how many people come. Like, we'll often have like 60 people sign up and then sometimes we'll have like 12 people who join us and then sometimes it'll be like 45. It's like it's really random. Yeah. So never know quite what to expect, but yeah. And I'm going to also invite people to let me save the chat right now while I'm thinking of it. I'm going to invite people to leave comments in the chat too, because we won't have a lot of time to have full discussions. So I'm going to encourage chat commenting for folks as well. And given that there will be time constraints, I would love for you to like practice your presentation, get a handle on how long it is, and and be mindful of how you're going to facilitate the dialogue. Like, is there a specific question that would be really helpful for you to ask for feedback around, for example? You know what I mean? Or it could be, or you could let it flow however you want. But if you want to get something specific out of it, so specific feedback, I think that's something to premeditate on, you know, how you're going to factor that in. Otherwise, it'll just be me spitting out random comments the whole time.
I mean, I think also in my conversations with Patricia is that it's a really great way just to promote the class, Anna, for future, right? So
Yeah,
people that might be considering taking it and to keep the class going, right, for future
yeah, we often
iteration.
do
Yeah.
have a lot of new interested participants. And yeah, and Patricia wants to do the next time we run this to have it be like a focused special class. So I'm trying to assess too, like what is the most interesting topic among the things we're discussing that we might hone in on? Like, is it socially engaged art practices? Like how to connect your practice with community and environment, or like really focusing on like the wildcrafting aspect. So anyways, just to say, if you have any feedback on that, we're gonna Patricia and I will send you guys a questionnaire at the end of the class, and would love any constructive feedback. Yeah.
I think there should
Cool.
be an AI and a confronting AI class and
Oh
the AI and
man.
in the environment.
Whoa. I think I
I
need to
would take
collaborate
it.
with an AI educator. That would be really interesting. Just to know, what are we up against here? How do we like
If we don't
I
lean, I
actually
mean, other
I
people
actually
are going
use
to decide if we don't start talking about it.
yeah. I think it's one of those things everyone's afraid of. Me as a creator, I actually
I'm afraid.
it's probably like taboo to say in all the early stages. I totally enjoy having like creative session conversations because I ask all these like questions and stuff like that and free write and free think with it,
with
knowing the
AI?
knowing the parameters. Yeah, I'm in it. It's just it's a fun way of like, because a lot of times I use it as just like truncating and I pull words and stuff like that out. It's just a real free association type of conversation that I have with it. I don't see it sometimes as different as when I'm doing my graphic design work and I'm searching for photos and trying to put a brochure together and trying to accumulate images. And it's as far as like research, but I'm very, very definitively careful of like what I'm doing though, like in the creative choices that I'm making. So I'm not asking it to like be lazy and make something for me ever. Like it's more of like it's very conversational. So maybe I can give examples of it or whatever so that that would be
I am
helpful to understand how it
Megan,
gets
I'm
used.
totally with you. I actually took a class on using on art and language where we have been working a lot with large language models. And so I've just been training my own uh, to like kind of like as you said, like a peer-to-peer assistant in terms of helping me with idea generation. And also, I recently taught a performance art class where I encouraged everybody to use ChatGPT and put in their artist statement for their proposed performance and ask AI to give possible actions and gestures to perform. And everybody was really pleased with like the outcome. And they started off like really reluctant.
Yeah.
So I'm loving using it, and I feel like it's just another tool, and we can choose not to use it, but then that puts us at a disadvantage as an artist if we're not using it and everybody else is, right?
I think
You
if we
know,
have like ethical boundaries or parameters or questions to keep asking yourself,
Mhm.
as you're proceeding through the process, and you're just like, as long as you're balancing it, um, just a reminders of keeping the ethical part of it. Mhm. Staying in check, staying in balance, using AI safely.
yeah, I was bouncing around Cleveland with this artist this week named Prem Krishnamurti. He's a hyper interdisciplinary artist, but he is kind of intensely embracing AI in this project he's doing right now, where he's writing a book with AI. It's actually a book about AI sort of superseding human intelligence and needing to sustain itself by stealing light from the sun, so like starting to harvest the sun. But anyways, what he did was he has AI help him with a lot of his practice, it looks like, and he has submitted to ChatGPT or to AI that he's in dialogue with all of his writing, so it understands how his writing it works so often better than he does. And there was this outrageous part of the lecture where at the end of the lecture, he had three students come up and ask him questions about his practice. And he spoke them into the phone, and he had the whole screen was just his phone the whole time. He's an outrageous artist. But he had his phone the whole time. Just see, he's talking to his phone, voice text, asking the questions they're asking him to AI, and then the AI answers for him. But it was just outrageous. It was
Wow.
outrageous. Uh, And the question came up around like the complexity of AI being something that is really bad for the environment because it takes such an obscene amount of energy, right?
Yeah.
Water.
And so he
Yep.
was saying,
These data centers are literally taking water that people desperately need into small towns, like
Yeah.
they're already having water problems. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
and
actually
energy.
wanted to point out because this was a real something that was brought up in my class, and the facilitator actually said, well, if you look at like how much energy it takes just from using the large language models like ChatGPT, um, it uses much more energy just to stream your favorite shows that you watch on like Netflix, right?
oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Wow.
well,
Yeah, because my daughter
So interesting.
always, she was like, are you, like the arguments, and she's in the class, she's like, you exactly what you brought up with the water issue. She's like, you do realize how much it's utilizing. So it's like, so yeah, it would be nice to have that tangible physical example showing people that, because I don't think people, it's like the plastic bags and everything else, once something's made tangible, you can see the outcomes of it, I think, and it's not fake news. It's, it's,
Yeah.
you have to actually see stuff,
And how do
to,
we communicate that? Through the arts.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
so.
I gotta run,
Thank-
y'all.
Yep,
Hi,
Thank
guys.
same.
you.
Thanks. That was
Thank
a
you.
really
you.
fruitful
Bye,
conversation.
everybody.
Bye,
Bye, thank
guys.
you.
See you next month.
Thanks.
Bye.